Gestalt is really about a holistic approach to working with a client. It looks at how there's so many different parts of the person, and these parts all represent different pieces of the whole. So it could be an experience, it could be like a characteristic or a trait or a piece of a personality. So if you think of the part of you that gets things done, that has determination, and how that impacts the whole person. And our work isn't about getting rid of any parts. Our work is about finding some balance and relationship between all of these parts, appreciating what it brings to your life, appreciating how it influences you and how it helps the whole function in their environment, in their world. Another big piece of this theory, and that's what we're going to be looking at here, is the client's experience. We care about what they're going through, about diving in and looking from an experiential world, their phenomenological experience in their environment, meaning how they're making contact with it, how their environment's making contact with them. And this could be through relationship. We're hoping that through this exploration of their experience that we start to find unfinished business, places that they have been blocked or stuck, and that they're not relating to the world now. They're actually stuck in these previous ways of relating, or stuck in something that is holding on to them and keeping them from being fully functional. We're also going to be trying to dive in and increase their experience. Because we're so humanistic in nature when we talk about Gestalt, we really do tend heavily to the relationship. And so I'm going to make sure that I'm tending to the relationship as much as possible, because the stronger the relationship, the stronger the fertile soil between us. And that's where our session comes from. That fertile soil is what grows the intervention, it's what grows awareness. And so the more that we tend to it, the more fruitful it is between us. So this is our first time together. And this session really is about you. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it completely over to you. Wherever you want to start, wherever you want to open up, it's yours.
Okay. Well, for the last 2 years, I would say I've been on kind of a spiritual journey, trying to figure out, kind of linking to my past, and then looking at, the present of who I am today, and continuing to grow. And really exploring a lot about my life as a child and who I am today, the good and bad stuff. So that's I've been trying to kind of find, what is my next step now in kind of this journey of who I am.
So you said 2 years this journey, so take me on this journey with you a little bit more.
Okay. I don't want to go too far back. I don't know how far back you want me to go, but I'm the youngest of 4 children, and I grew up. What was interesting is I really did not realize throughout my whole life I had a very volatile childhood. Lots of abuse, lots of emotional, emotional and sexual abuse. But in all of it, I was always trying to figure out who I was, because I had a very controlling mother. And so the journey 2 years ago started because I had this awareness and finally figured out kind of the pinpoint of some of the issues for me in relation to my mother, which ended up being that my mother has a narcissistic personality disorder. Never really pinpointed it. It's kind of like when you're in it, you don't see it. And so as I began that journey, it was kind of a healing place for me to understand her worldview, not excuse it, and then make decisions based upon that knowledge.
So let me pause you here. So what I'm hearing is this journey kind of started off with this realization, this kind of diving in, and then almost in a sense, now that I know this, or now that you said see it,
yes,
and we came up really strong there, see it, that once we had the see it, it really jump-started this journey and really has been fueling it in a way.
Yeah, definitely been fueling it. So I, kind of went knee deep into really exploring it for myself. It's easy to see that in other people, but when it's very personal. And it kind of became a little sad because I realized that when you start looking into that, that part of the issue that happened for me that impacts who I am today is the reality that I didn't have good bonding as a child. My mother did not bond well with me.
So you missed out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so it really kind of messed up how I relate to other people. my relatability.
So that's interesting. So that's a little new. I heard it's almost sad
Yeah.
that this has impacted my ability to be with others.
Yes. Yes.
Let's dive into that a little bit
Okay.
more.
Meaning, like self-judgment, like very judgmental. When I grew up in that environment, I just was always learning how to walk on eggshells, how to please her. So my identity development, I always questioned who I was in my identity. And now that I've gone through this 2 years, I'm like, I wasn't that bad of a kid, and I'm actually a pretty good person, and I'm fun to be around.
Big changes.
Yeah. And so, but at the time, it was like always trying to find flaws. So that's what I mean by the next step. I need to not always see myself as flawed.
Yeah. So let me pull back a little bit, because when you're talking about it, I hear this childhood component as I wasn't really growing or into who I was. I was really making sure that my environment was taken care of.
Yes.
And now
Absolutely.
it's almost that sense of like you're now doing this development that you did then.
Yeah,
I'm
that I
hearing a
needed
growing.
to.
Yeah,
that I needed to. Almost like starting over, figuring out who I am, and not without that parental figure telling me who to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that links back into what you said. I want to see myself as not being flawed.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that part.
Okay.
Oh, there's a face. Let's stop there, because there.
Okay.
What was the face?
That's just tough.
So not seeing myself as flawed.
I'm gonna grab a tissue.
Okay. Not seeing myself as flawed. That's tough. Okay. Where does it feel tough? Here. Okay. Let's put our hand here. Take a deep breath into it. Give me some of what that is.
Holding back.
Okay.
Um,
Here, you're holding back with me.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
I don't usually cry.
So when I cry, I know I'm not holding back anymore. Let's put our hand back. I want to stay with it, because
Okay.
it sounds like it's right here with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here it is. I'm holding back, and now I'm seeing you cry. What's going on?
I don't like that.
I want to hear some more.
I intellectualize, so I'm trying to move the feeling to my head.
Oh, so we're moving it, like pushing
It's
it.
moving
I want to
up.
push
Yeah.
you. I want to
Yeah.
push you away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to push this away. I want to push you away.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that's happening
Guarded.
here.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is when it gets tough, I try again to control my environment of
Oh,
how
yeah.
you see me.
Absolutely.
Let's stay with that.
And it's like I have a realization of it in the moment. It's kind of like hard to pinpoint, like a brokenness.
Yeah. I hear that flawed, and now I hear brokenness. Yeah. Yeah. So this idea of even seeing yourself as flawed and broken is one thing, but if I see you as flawed and broken, it's totally different.
Oh yeah. I know I am.
Mm-hmm.
But other people, it's hard.
Yeah. I don't want to share my brokenness with you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Let's talk about this guarding that you talked about. You said, I'm
Okay.
holding back.
Yeah.
And you put your hand here to hold it back. Okay. If this part right here had some message of this holding back, what would it say?
It would probably say you're okay.
That's not what I expected.
Really?
Yeah.
You're okay. I mean, like, you don't have, what I mean is you don't have to hold it in. It's okay to express emotion. It's okay to not have your guard up.
Okay. So this part of you says it's okay, but there's some part of you that says hold back. Don't show them the brokenness.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I'd like to explore those pieces a little bit
Okay.
more. So
Okay.
we're going to try something.
Sure.
For some people it works, for some people it doesn't, but we are going to try it to see a little bit more of this conflict between I want to show you because it's okay, and I want to hold back. Don't show that brokenness. I want you to move into this chair whenever you're ready. Sit all the way back in this chair.
Okay.
And if you want to, feel free to close your eyes.
Okay.
In this chair,
Okay.
this is the part of you that says, it's okay. This part may have a different feeling around it. It might even sit differently.
Okay.
It might even sound differently. This is the part that says, it's okay to show that you're safe now. When you have a really good sense of this part, like you say, I feel it, I'm there, I can feel that. I want you to open your eyes, and I want you to look back at the part of you that said, no, you better hold back.
Okay.
So when you're ready, when that feeling gets really strong, I'm okay. It's okay to share that. I'm safe.
I do feel safe. It's weird because I got in this chair and I feel a sense of peace, and my jaw changes. My jaw kind of drops, provided a lot of peace. And sense of, okay, this is relieving, kind of a relieving part. And that's the person I want to be. That's the part I want to be all the time.
So when you're ready, when you say, oh, yes, I feel this peace, this, I want to be this, I want you to look back at the part.
Okay.
Imagine what that part of you would be sitting in that chair looking like. That part is going to look totally different from this.
You want me to say what that part would say?
Absolutely.
Tell
that
say,
part.
Don't talk about this. Don't be vulnerable. Don't let people in.
That's what that part would say.
Yeah.
But this part wants to be open.
Okay.
The openness.
Okay, this open part.
What does the openness say back?
I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to worry about always failing. You're good as you are.
You're good as you
People will
are.
like you as you are. You're a relatable person. People connect with you. You're a spiritual being. You're holistic. You're loved. You're cared for.
Yeah.
You're a good mother.
Woo, this part is very connected to your life.
Yeah.
In this moment, let's think about when you are told to hold back, what it does to this openness. What does it do?
Makes me mute, makes me question. More than anything, I think analytical makes me go into my thinking and stop.
So when that part says, hold back, this part says, hey, wait a second. It makes me double question even being myself.
Yes. Absolutely, yeah.
What's that like?
It's like wavering moments of peace. This is peaceful, that is not.
Yeah.
That hold back person is not peaceful.
So I know we probably don't want to leave this chair.
Probably, no. It feels good, actually. It feels like a good space.
This feels good.
Yeah.
And I can see that because even when you're in this chair, your eyes look brighter.
Yeah.
I see a lot more.
Relax.
Yeah. So I know we don't want to, but we're going to hear what this one has to say.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to move
I'm
back.
sure that will happen. Oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord. The second you sit down, there it comes. Oh, Lord.
Yeah. And I think partly just the seating position. It's like it's an authoritative position. So.
So this one feels like an authority to you.
Oh, yeah. That's authority.
You better hold back. When you say that, I almost feel like a sense of that parental. You better
It's
do
very
what I
parental.
tell you.
Very parental. It's my mother's voice.
Oh, this part sounds different.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Okay. You heard this part say, open up.
Yeah.
It's okay. Now I want you to just, it sounds like you already have a really good sense of this part, the way it feels.
It's more familiar, yes.
It's more familiar, but if you feel comfortable, I'm going to ask that you close your eyes.
Okay.
Kind of take a deep breath into this part. This part says hold back. Don't show anyone you're broken. Don't show anyone that you have flaws. You need to be guarded.
Yes.
And when you get a real strong sense of what this feels like, even maybe where it feels like in your body, I'm going to ask that you open your eyes and think about what was just said when we moved out into this open part
Okay.
and how you would respond.
Where I feel this part is in my throat.
Okay, so this is even different.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's from people that tear up.
Okay, I'm guarding my heart.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So if you had to turn to this one that says, hey, be open,
Yeah.
what would this part say?
You're going to get hurt. You need to watch out. You need to figure out what's going to happen before you move forward. You don't know what people will say or what they'll do.
Is it interesting that I haven't heard this before? Because when I'm hearing this response, what I'm hearing is, I'm trying to protect you.
Oh, yeah.
That's different.
Yeah. And the other thing that comes to mind when I look is that, yes, the protection, like this is what's protected you all your life. That is.
Oh, I've been around a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop trying to
But
close
you're
me out.
resilient, so you're resilient. You're doing good, but this is a protective thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have some value too. Before, when we were kind of talking about these parts, this open one kind of almost made it seem like you need to just back off.
Get away.
But now I'm almost hearing, I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying to make sure that you don't get hurt. That's very different.
Yeah. Yeah. And in some way, it's trying to, I'm trying to figure out how to balance the two. And I'm a big
Like a
writer,
pull.
and I journal and write about it. And I actually called it the brokenness and trying to be okay with both. But I didn't really call it this, but definitely.
So that almost makes me think that there's this sense of like push pull, like there's got to be some kind of balance, is what I'm hearing you say when you say the brokenness, be okay with both.
Yes. Be okay with both pieces of that. And there are moments it will be this and moments it will be that.
Let's then try. We're gonna do one more
Okay.
separate piece, because I hear how strongly these are. I want to move you into this chair, because what I just heard you say is that your goal is not to live in either one of these pieces. Your goal is to have a balance between them.
For a while, I wanted to get rid of that.
Oh, we were hoping. Let's push you out the door.
Yeah.
You don't belong.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I've been trying to do that. That's been that 2-year journey. I've got to figure out that this is a balance. I can't. It's who I am. It's part of who I am. And it's not a bad piece of me.
So this piece brings value. This piece brings value. But when they conflict, what does it do to you?
Ooh, it's like a kind of spiraling sometimes of thinking, questioning self, kind of trying to question what's going on here, I think it is a lot of observing the environment to see what I need to figure out.
Kind of to see which one should take the lead, is what I heard there.
It is kind of like that at times.
It sounds like a lot of work. When they conflict, it seems like a lot of work for you. I need to watch the environment. I have a lot of thoughts spiraling.
Yeah. But I do feel the last 2 years I've gotten more authentic. I feel like I've always been an authentic person, and I think I've just gotten to where I have to accept that neither one is bad. I always thought, honestly, that this is bad. This self, this part of self, they won't like what they see.
So that's interesting. Okay, so that's new. And before it was kind of like the authoritative, the mother, but you say, I thought this part was bad, being open.
Oh, yeah.
Sharing who I am with someone. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Just because just trying to figure out from how I was raised, my identity was very formed by my mother. She was the center. So who I was as a person, I always knew I was a very resilient person. But I was like, well, who am I in relation to the world? Because she was the center of the world.
Right. It's almost in a sense like trying to figure out, this is a new environment, this is a new way of interacting with it, and I'm not sure how to do that. Because there's no center.
Yeah.
There's no one to tell me who I am.
Exactly.
So this part, it sounds like, has been growing and growing and growing since this 2-year journey.
Yeah, and probably before that, but it's like my awareness and finally a big shift happened. It was just a shift of, you know, I have to accept that this created a lot of resilience. This person created a lot of resilience within me, because I think it is creation of who I am. But then as I got more education, as I got more of my own counseling and different people and grew, this became to emerge that this was a good part of self.
Yeah.
And that I was a, you know, pretty damn good person.
Yeah.
And trying to balance that out.
So I'm almost hearing a sense that these parts have been struggling to almost figure out how they belong inside of you. You're dealing with this, but also trying to figure out what they bring to the table.
Oh yeah.
Because I just heard, hey, you're a pretty good person right here. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So let's take a step back then. I want to think about what this moving between these two parts, what kind of brings up for you.
Okay.
When you were able to move between these two parts, what did it bring up?
In terms of good things or
Anything you want to share?
Well, this brings a sense of peace, you know, of you know, who I am. This one kind of creates a sense of questioning, always questioning myself in relation to others, in relation to just interactions. It's like a childlike self in some way, because it's what, you know, it's the memories, it's who I am. But what's interesting is this division of new self. I've been on my own since I was 17. So this is more of the positive development of it than this, but this has a lot of power.
Yeah.
Still.
So this one right here has been growing and growing and growing, but this one's still
Pretty powerful. Yeah.
It says, I've been around a while. I've been around.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
you. So this continued conflict between the two continues through this. When you think about these two parts and achieving balance, I'm kind of wondering, you said, I want to take this next step. What would that look like with these parts, this next step of what you want in this journey?
What I've thought about, I mean, I have been kind of writing and trying to figure that out, and what I've kind of been thinking is like accepting the narrative of my life in some way, kind of accepting that this was a part of my life in a story in a very fundamental time when you're developing and you're a small child and you're kind of growing. And it was actually that strength is what got me through not to, you know, to be successful in a lot of ways, because if I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't be the person I am today. So I've tried to look at all of these pieces or narratives, and I do want to mute this one a little bit more, but I do want more of this narrative, more, because I feel like I'm an authentic person, but I think I know what it is. I question my authenticity. That somebody else would question my authenticity. That's what it is. It's this is who I am, parts of me, and somebody else questioning that is not who I really am.
So
Does that make sense?
So what I'm hearing is almost like, depending on which part they see, they might not know if I'm being authentic. Is that what I'm hearing?
I guess so.
Like, how do I balance this and
I want to
show
make sure
you?
it's integrated, yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's getting there.
Yeah.
Because I am who I am. You see what you see with me, you know.
It's one thing that I've noticed that when you're talking is that you've almost designated these qualities to these parts. This, every time you say strength, or you say perseverance, your hand goes here. And then when you say, I'm a damn good person, my hand goes here.
Yeah, that's true.
And what I'm hearing is there's so much challenge in saying, and both of these are me.
Oh, yeah. And so that's kind of my next step. I do feel that. I mean, I definitely feel that.
How do I be authentic with so much polar opposites
Oh, yeah, definitely.
living inside of me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Almost adversarial at times, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so trying to kind of merge the two. I do think that it's coming more and more. I guess how I know that is that as the days unfold, I feel them more integrated. This is just who I am. This is who I am. You know, this is part of pieces of me, just part of. I often visualize it like a heart and just pieces that are broken and kind of move together. That's kind of a visual that I have.
Am I hearing almost like kind of like puzzle pieces?
Yes,
Is that what I'm
yes,
hearing?
It's like a puzzle.
Okay. So it's interesting because 2 times now, and since we've moved into this chair, I've heard the theme of acceptance. And it continues. Now I'm seeing these puzzle pieces and how they fit together. That when we think about this part, but when I see you here saying, these both are part of me, I continue to hear, I want more acceptance of these parts.
Yes, that's what I want. Is accept. At first, I didn't want this one at all. Almost
Mute.
exiting out. Yeah, exiting out. But now I've and I've always said, oh, I've been through a lot. That's who makes me who I am, and I am not all that, and But I think I know both of them create a sense of strength here, and this joint united person.
So that's kind of a word that I want to end on here.
Okay.
Is that we went from parts to acceptance, and now we're at a sense of united.
So Sarah, great job. That was just a really, really neat demonstration to see, and I'm so glad we had the opportunity to do this. So thinking about some of the key concepts you talked about at the beginning, the relationship, that kind of the here and now experience, looking for those specific components of kind of the experience and processing those different things. So what kind of stood out for you with this session most regarding kind of those key concepts that you spoke about earlier?
So the relationship component, I mean, that's always going to be a key concept. If I do not have any connectedness to her, there's no way we're going to ever get anywhere. So it's a constant tending, and it's a tending of really being present.
How did you know you had that?
That's a great question. I would say that when I started to see her continuing to dive deeper, especially she gave feelings very quickly, and as soon as they were given back, she continued to dive deeper, allowing it to come up between us.
Right.
When she became tearful, it was obvious there must be a connection, because if she's not going to allow herself to be vulnerable.
So there was trust there that was very
Yes.
evident.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And another component is, if you think about Gestalt, they talk about experiments. And really, experiment is just trying something to see if we can open a piece of awareness. So me saying, doing a somatic component of saying, put your hands here, and her doing it, trying it, that's an experiment in a sense. Right? I'm asking her to try something to see if it'll increase her
You didn't
awareness.
know where that would go either, right?
Nope.
So this isn't like your special technique thing. You just really.
There's
Okay.
no pre-planned. There's no specific technique. It's just whatever comes from the fertile soil of the relationship. It just comes. So I have no idea what we're going to do in the moment.
Right.
If I'm being attentive to her and my focus is just her and just the relationship, then what needs to come will come out of that fertile soil.
Okay.
And so we just allow things to happen in the moment. So allowing her to intensify it, and she was able not only to intensify it, but to really bring it up and to say, here's the message, is that I'm feeling guarded. When I heard the conflict, that's the part that stood out to me, is I want to hold back. And then her saying, be open was the message. What a polarity.
Yeah.
That how can one exist of hold back and be open at the same time? These two parts were so clearly forcing against each other that I felt it had to be. You have to separate them out.
So what was the whole idea with the chairs? What was your thinking there?
So the chairs is to make almost like a visual representation of the parts that are inside. It's really hard for people that if you're just sitting around discussing these parts, they tend to jump between them instead of having that really clear, defined separation.
Right.
So you bring the parts in by giving them a space. So in a way, I like to think of this as like an entity, right? These parts are entities of themselves. They have their own characteristics. You heard they had their own qualities.
Right.
So when you give them a chair, you give them that entity.
Right.
It's easier to then immerse yourself into that part to get an understanding of how it's impacting the whole, which we had in that third chair. So that's one of the reasons why you use the empty chair to separate these parts, because if we're just sitting here talking about parts, it could be back and forth, back and forth. But if we give it a physical place to be represented, it helps people to get a really clear definition of what that
Right.
part is doing and to separate it out from the conflict.
So when you say that part, so where does emotional block come into this? Is that what you're speaking to, or is the emotional block kind of another component, or was that kind of the initial thing, or where
When
would
you
we
say-
have seen that?
Do you say emotional block? Do you mean unfinished business?
I believe so. I mean, that's
Okay.
is that how it's defined?
So the unfinished business sounds like what happened with her mother, that
Okay.
we're still seeing some residual impact of being stuck there.
Okay.
And you even heard it as she started talking in her dialogue, that she started saying that she didn't grow. So her that unfinished business had held her stuck for quite some time.
Right.
I didn't emotionally grow, even as an identity of who I am. So she's been stuck for a while. So this 2-year journey, that's a part of her moving away from her unfinished business to get it into a resolved place, so that she's now able to say, this is who I am, and I can interact with the world, not allow these different parts to
Right.
control me.
Okay. Okay. So oftentimes new counselors coming into the field, starting to play around with Gestalt, I notice that they want to quite often end the sessions with, okay, great work. Now, what are you going to do? Now, what's your homework going to be? Or, so
Right.
what can you do to make this, change even greater? So 3 steps to success, really wanting to kind of swing it to a cognitive behavioral kind of something
Right.
like that thing.
An action.
You ended it. So speak about the difference
Yeah.
there and why it's okay just to, that's the point, right? So,
Yeah. So, in an Americanized sense, that we believe that change only comes when you're doing something.
Yeah.
You must be doing.
Right, right.
Gestalt is about being. I'm trying to be with you to allow whatever needs to come, and I'm going to be so present, and I'm going to care so much about the relationship. There's so much grace in a Gestalt relationship, because whatever comes,
Right.
and I allow it to be here.
Yeah.
And so because of that, think about, I tell students, think about how many places in your life, like currently, that you can go and truly be yourself, and whatever comes out is acceptable, that we can handle it. That's really rare. So the act of being with someone and then just processing to really dive in, to breed self-awareness, is the intervention. That is the doing. I don't need to give them a worksheet. I don't need to tell them, go
Yeah.
do this. Now let's talk about that next step. What we did was the curative factor. That exploration itself is what promotes that self-awareness. It's what grows it. And it's way more important than anything I could tell her. Now let's just identify one thing you're going to do today, to be different.
Right,
That
right.
awareness will grow difference.
Very nice.